30 years ago, my father, Michael Landon, passed away from pancreatic cancer just 3 months after his diagnosis.
Look, it's not my career on the line tonight. I'm just sitting here.
For millions of viewers, Michael Landon was the perfect father. His family remembers a more complicated story. As Michael Landon became one of television's most beloved stars through Little House on the Prairie, he built an image that audiences trusted completely. But behind the scenes, the people closest to him were experiencing a reality that looked very different from the one viewers saw each week. So, who was Michael Landon when the cameras stopped rolling? And what has his daughter finally revealed about the man behind the television legend? Join us as we uncover the real Michael Landon through the eyes of the family who knew him best. The man behind America's favorite father. The name on his birth certificate was Eugene Maurice Orowitz. He was born in Forest Hills, Queens, New York. Not the kind of origin story that produces cowboy icons or prairie fathers, but the kind of origin story that produces someone who spends his entire life constructing an alternative identity so compelling that the alternative eventually swallows the original. His mother, Peggy, was a Jewish showgirl and comedic actress. His father, Eli Orowitz, was a theater manager. By all accounts, the household was complicated. His mother experienced significant mental health struggles throughout his childhood, and the experience of growing up in that environment left marks that Michael carried and addressed in interviews throughout his life with unusual vulnerability for a man whose professional image was built on wholesome stability. He changed his name at 19, picked Michael Landon out of a phone book, and went to Hollywood as a different person. The invention of Michael Landon was a survival mechanism, a new identity deliberately constructed by a young man who needed to become someone else and who turned out to be extraordinarily good at doing it. The television career that followed the name change built a persona that became one of the most trusted in American entertainment history. Little Joe Cartwright on Bonanza from 1959 to 1973. Charles Pa Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie from 1974 to 1983. Jonathan Smith on Highway to Heaven from 1984 to 1989. 3 consecutive decades of playing decent, morally authoritative, family-first men on American television. 50 million viewers on Little House alone. The most successful run of family values programming in the history of network television. And then there was the private life that existed alongside all of it. And interestingly, the most complicated part of Michael Landon's story wasn't what happened on screen. It was what happened in the home he built. The nothing short of complicated marriages. Michael Landon's first marriage was to Dodie Levy-Fraser in 1956, and it was way before he had reinvented himself into Michael Landon. He adopted her son, Mark, and together they had another son, Josh. However, the marriage began to develop cracks, and they eventually went their separate ways in 1962 while his television career was just beginning to build momentum. One thing that shocks most people till date is the fact that he did not wait for the divorce to be finalized before he had moved on, which reveals a lot about why his marriage to Dee Dee's ended. He was already in a relationship with Marjorie Lynn Noe, and the two married in Mexico just weeks after his divorce from Dodie was finalized in January 1963. The second marriage, to Lynn Noe, lasted 19 years and produced 4 children: Leslie, Michael Jr., Shauna, and Christopher. Lynn had a daughter, Cheryl, from a previous marriage whom Michael adopted. On paper and in public, this was the golden era of the Landon family. The Kodak commercials, the family together at industry events. A man who played a devoted husband and father on television, and appeared to be one in the real world, too. In 1980, everything changed when it emerged that Michael was having an affair with Cindy Clerico, a woman who had been hired as a stand-in on Little House on the Prairie. She was 18 years old when they met. Michael was 43, and he was her employer, who was already married with 5 children. Karen Grassel, who played his television wife on Little House, described Cindy in her 2021 memoir as a nice young woman who was tiny and slim, and described Michael's behavior on set in the period leading up to the affair's discovery as including boasting to cast members about his sex life and discussing the benefits of various supplements for the aging male. His television co-stars were not pleased. His real family was devastated. The affair became public while he was still married to Lynn No, and what makes the entire thing more devastating was that Cindy Clerico, the 18-year-old girl, became pregnant before the divorce from Lynn was finalized. The divorce cost Michael an estimated $5 million. He eventually married Cindy on Valentine's Day, 1983, 2 weeks after the divorce from Lynn was made official, in a private ceremony in Leucadia, California. Jennifer was born in 1983, and then their son Sean arrived just a year after Jennifer. The affair destroyed Michael's relationship with Melissa Gilbert, who had grown up on the Little House set and described him as a father figure. He lost several major endorsement deals, including his long-running Kodak campaign. His television wife, Karen Grassel, left the show in no small part due to her discomfort with the situation that had unfolded on set. The man who told America every Friday night that family and decency were the only things that mattered had constructed his third family on the ruins of his second, with a woman who had been a teenager when he first noticed her. Lynn Noe, whose marriage of 19 years ended this way, founded a support group she named Life After Divorce is Eventually Sane, LADIES, turning the wreckage of her marriage into something that could help other women in the same situation. She once told interviewers that the divorce had felt like a death. She did not attend his funeral in 1991. She died in November 2015 in Palos Verdes Estates, California, at 82 years old. But the person who would spend the most time addressing the legacy of those choices was not one of Michael Landon's former wives. It was his daughter, the daughter who grew up in the aftermath. Jennifer Landon was born in 1983, the year her parents got married, also the same year after her father's second marriage ended in the affair that had already made national news. She grew up in a household that was the product of a very public family collapse, as the daughter of a man who was simultaneously the most beloved family figure in American television and someone whose actual family history was considerably more complicated than his public image suggested. She followed her father into acting, studying at the Tisch School of the Arts at New York University, building a career in soap opera and television that earned her 3 Daytime Emmy Awards for her role as Gwen Norbeck Munson on As the World Turns. She has appeared in The Young and the Restless and multiple other television productions. She is, by any assessment, a genuinely talented actress who built a career on her own terms rather than simply trading on her father's name. What she has addressed publicly about her father, carefully, in fragments, over years, is the tension of being the daughter of a man the world adored, and whose private conduct told a more complicated story. She grew up knowing things about her father that the 50 million viewers who trusted him did not know. She grew up as the product of the marriage that the affair had produced, in a household that contained the shadow of everything that had been destroyed to create it. She has spoken about carrying the weight of the Landon name, about the gap between the public's image of her father and the private reality she grew up inside. She has been careful not to strip her father of complexity in either direction, not to simply defend him, and not to simply condemn him. What she has confirmed is that the image he projected on television was not the complete picture of who he was at home, and that his children had to find their own ways to reconcile the man the world knew with the man they actually grew up around. That reconciliation is more complicated for Jennifer than for many of his other children because she grew up as part of the family that his affair created, which means that she carries within her own existence the evidence of the gap between who her father told the world he was and what he actually did. She was not a victim of the affair, she was the product of it. That specific position requires a kind of ongoing reckoning that most people never have to navigate. But Jennifer Landon was not the only person forced to reconcile those two versions of Michael Landon. Others who knew him closely faced the same contradiction, including someone millions of viewers watched grow up beside him. And the most revealing accounts came from this person who loved him deeply and knew him long before the public debates began. So, what did the person have to say? What Melissa Gilbert confirmed. Of all the people who have spoken publicly about the gap between Michael Landon's public image and his private behavior, nobody has done it with more authority or more complicated emotion than Melissa Gilbert. She played half-pint on Little House on the Prairie from the age of 9. Michael Landon was Charles Ingalls on that set, and, by her own account in her memoir, Prairie Tale, he was a version of Charles Ingalls off it too. A mentor, a protective presence, a man she described as a father figure in the most literal emotional sense during the years when she was growing up on that set. In her memoir, Melissa wrote about the devastating change that happened when the Cindy Clerico affair became public. The man she had trusted as a surrogate father had been conducting an affair with a woman barely older than Melissa herself, on the same set where he was playing the most morally upright father on American television. The betrayal was not just personal, but also structural. It destabilized her understanding of the man who had been one of the most important people in her formation. She has also spoken, with considerable generosity, about his final months. When the pancreatic cancer diagnosis came in April 1991, Michael went public almost immediately, giving interviews, appearing on the Today Show, refusing to disappear quietly. Melissa described this as consistent with who he was, a man who had always done things in public, who understood the specific relationship between himself and an audience that had been watching him for 30 years, and who treated his own dying with the same conscious performance that had defined everything else in his career. She noted that he kept his sense of humor until the end, that even with the cancer moving as fast as it was, he was still himself, still performing, still finding ways to be the version of Michael Landon that the people around him had always known. He died on July 1, 1991, at 54 years old, after being diagnosed just 3 months before.
Actor Michael Landon is dead after a battle with inoperable liver and pancreatic cancer. The 54-year-old star of TV's Little House on the Prairie and Bonanza.
Pancreatic cancer at his stage and speed gave him almost no time between the diagnosis and the end. He spent that time doing exactly what he had always done, being Michael Landon in public, managing the image, controlling the narrative even as the disease stripped everything else away. His daughter Jennifer was 7 years old when he died, but his death was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a second, more complicated version of it, because after Michael Landon died, the story didn't end. It split in two. The legacy that required a second look. 30 years after his death, the Michael Landon legacy exists in two versions that have never fully merged. The first version is the one the world built, America's father, the man who reassured a generation of television viewers every Friday night that hard work and decency and family were the only things that truly mattered. The Little House on the Prairie version, the Highway to Heaven version, the version that produced a line of memorial merchandise and anniversary DVD releases and documentary tributes. The second version is the one his children have been carefully constructing in public since his death, not to tear down the first version, but to complete it. Cheryl Landon Wilson, the daughter he adopted when he married Lynn Noe, wrote a memoir in which she described the marriage between her parents as genuinely passionate and loving, and the affair that ended it as genuinely devastating. She wrote about watching her mother lose part of herself trying to be what Michael appeared to want, and about the difficulty of maintaining both the love she felt for her father and the knowledge of what he had done to her family. Jennifer Landon's version is shaped by a different position in the same story. She grew up in the marriage the affair produced. Her father was present in her life. Photographs of Michael and Cindy Landon with Jennifer and Sean at public events show a family that looked intact and functional. He died when she was 7, leaving her with memories of a man she did not have enough time to fully know. What Jennifer has confirmed over years of public interviews and statements is the truth that the simplest versions of the Michael Landon legacy obscure, that her father was a genuinely talented and charismatic man who inspired real affection in the people around him, and also a man who behaved in ways that caused real damage to the people who loved him. Both of those things are true simultaneously. The Pa Ingalls version and the private version were inhabited by the same person. The question of how to hold both of them at once is what his children have been working through ever since he died. Jennifer Landon is now in her early 40s. She is a working actress with 3 Daytime Emmy Awards and a career she built herself. She speaks about her father with the specific care of someone who is protecting something real, not the mythology, but the genuine complexity of a person she loves and is still trying to fully understand. From the memories of a 7-year-old who did not get enough time. Cindy Landon, her mother, stayed devoted to Michael through his illness and death, and has described him in terms that are consistently warm. The man she fell in love with on a television set when she was 19, who she married 2 weeks after his divorce was finalized, who gave her 2 children, and who she lost to cancer 3 months after the diagnosis. Her version of Michael Landon is the 3rd marriage version, the man he became in his 50s with the younger family in the last decade of his life. Several of his children have spoken about the difficulty of grieving a public figure whose private life was so different from the public one. The grief, the complication, and the love is real, and they all have to exist in the same space simultaneously. That is not a scandal. It is just what it looks like when a complicated person dies, and the people who loved him are left holding everything he left behind. But it wasn't just his family members that revealed the contract in the public image and private affairs. His co-star had a lot to say too. Karen Grissel's cold confession. Looking back on her time working with Michael Landon on Little House on the Prairie, Karen didn't speak about just warm memories. Behind the wholesome image the show projected on screen, there were real tensions brewing between the 2 stars that never fully went away while they were filming. Karen revealed that while Michael was undeniably talented, he was also highly strung, always on edge, and trying to keep the entire production together while still being the face of it. However, things took a turn during the show's early seasons when Karen asked for a raise. The series was already a hit, and she felt she deserved fair pay as one of its central characters. Instead, she says Michael shut it down. That moment, she says, changed how he treated her on set. After that, the atmosphere between them reportedly became colder. Karen recalls feeling pushed out emotionally, like she had gone from a valued co-star to someone he barely respected. She also claims the environment on set could be uncomfortable, with crude jokes and comments that made her feel small and isolated in moments when she was supposed to be working professionally. Despite the tension and the emotional strain, Karen eventually received her raise. More importantly, she says she was able to deal with her own struggles with alcohol and begin moving forward in her personal life. Interestingly, the two eventually reconciled before Michael's death. Looking back now, Karen revealed how grateful she is that they were able to mend their relationship before it was too late. When a man spends 3 decades on television telling America that family and honesty and doing the right thing are all that matter, and his actual family history tells a different story, does the art cancel the biography, or vice versa? And what does it say about Jennifer Landon that the daughter of America's most famous television father has spent her adult life being honest about who he actually was, rather than protecting a version of him the world finds more comfortable? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.